Hello, everyone. I'm Dwight Watson. I'm the chancellor at University of Wisconsin-Whitewater. We are a Division III award-winning, athletic-winning set of athletic sports, and we're very proud of that. And as the chancellor, I'm very proud of University of Wisconsin-Whitewater, as well as all the other institutions that are part of NCAA. You might not be able to see, but I am proudly wearing my Pride shirt today. The day this month is Gay Pride Month, and as a gay person, I proudly wear my colors. When I was growing up in the 1960s and the 1970s, I recognized that I enjoyed athletics, and I was a Black person, and I was a gay person, and I couldn't rectify all of those pieces in my head. And there was no one to guide me as I navigated my path. But today, as a Black person and as a gay person and as a chancellor of an award-winning athletic program, I proudly wear my colors, and I encourage others to support LGBTQ as well. My shirt says ally is a verb, and the thought is that we need more allies to support LGBTQ causes, and that ally is an action, not just a static word. But today, my purpose is to talk about the panel and to talk a little bit about the Minority Opportunities and Interest Committee, in which I'm a member of. The MOIC, as it is called, reviews issues related to the interest and advocacy of student athletes, coaches, and administrators who are ethnic minorities, LGBTQ, or who have disabilities, and review and advocate for NCAA programs and policies that affect and include but are not limited to ethnic minorities, individuals with disabilities, and LGBTQ. The core value of NCAA is to believe in and is committed to diversity, inclusion, and equity for all of our members and for all student athletes, coaches, and administrators. Diversity and inclusion improve the learning environment for all student athletes and enhances excellence in the association. We have several members here of NCAA, and I would like to introduce our panel today. Our panelist represents NCAA DEI award recipients from across the membership. The panelists will share briefly about each award recognition, and feel free to shorten your bios as you sort of introduce yourself. So I'm going to start with Trisha TurleyBrandenburg. I have some information here, but Tracy, I would like for you to introduce yourself.
Hi, yes, again, I'm Trisha TurleyBrandenburg. I'm the Deputy Director of Athletics and Senior Women Administrator here at Towson University. I've been here for about 8 years and has also served as the interim athletic director for a brief period of time. And I've also spent time at Ohio University, University of Massachusetts at Amherst, and Northeastern University. So I'll leave it at that for now.
All right. Trisha, thank you so very much. Next is Keena Gilmore. Could you introduce yourself, please?
Absolutely. My name is Kenneth Gilmore. I am a recent graduate of Hamilton College, which is in upstate New York, where I was a part of the men's basketball team and was recently named the NCAA's first LGBTQ plus athlete of the year. And I really want to continue sharing my message as a gay Black athlete and to kind of redefine some of the tropes and the stereotypes associated with queerness and race and sport. So it's great to be here today, and I'll leave it at that for now.
Thank you. Kellen Mangho.
Thank you, Chancellor. Really appreciate the opportunity to be here with everybody. I'm at the University of Wisconsin, River Falls. In my 5th year here, but I've had stops at DePauw University over in Indiana, Murray State University in Kentucky, and also North Central College in Illinois. I am an alum of the University of Iowa, and I also had Dr. Amy Wilson as one of my instructors as well. So I've come sort of full circle with her, but really, really proud to be here today.
All right, thank you. And Jackie MacWilliams.
Good morning. Good to see everyone. Just thank you for the opportunity. I am the commissioner of the Central Intercollegiate Athletic Association, known as CIAA, not CIAA, CIAA here in Charlotte, North Carolina. I've been here 9 years, been in college athletics about 30 years as a coach and administrator, started at Virginia Union, worked in the conference before, worked at Norfolk State, Morgan State, and then the NCAA for almost 10 years prior to taking this position. So I'm excited to be on the panel. I think all of this discussion today just pretty much culminates, brings everything that I've experienced as a Black woman, a straight woman, but also being empathetic to the people that we serve in this industry to give them the better and the best experiences that they can as a leader. And I'm a graduate of Hampton University. Maybe I say that.
Thank you so very much, Jackie. Well, each one of you all are award winners. And one of the first questions I have is, each of you have received recognition for your individual or institutional efforts related to championing diversity, equity, inclusion. Can you please briefly share the work you have led, facilitated, or supported surrounding DEI within athletics? And I'll start with Trisha here. Trisha, can you tell me a little bit about the award from Towson and how were you instrumental in that award?
Yes, thank you so much, Chancellor. Towson was awarded the 2021 NCAA MOA Diversity and Inclusion Award for our athletics program. And this was really a culmination of years of work that we've done here at Towson, starting with the work, my colleague Antoine Smith has done building our Total Tiger program, which really works to provide mentorship and really guide our values of service and giving back to the community with our student athletes. And from there, we've kind of built layers of programs and services and conversations around DEI, including building a program review guide where we use that to evaluate our department annually related to gender equity, diversity and inclusion and equity. We have used that to spur many conversations, especially over the last year, but throughout my time here at Towson. And I think what I'm most proud of is that, these layers of programs and services and conversations has, built an atmosphere and an environment where our student athletes feel empowered to get involved and be activists in this realm, which led to our student athletes forming their own group that they call TU Aid, which is TU Athletes for Inclusion, Diversity, and Equity. And they've launched a program they call their TU Can Games, which is their cultural appreciation nights, where they use their games and contests to support local charities and organizations right here in Baltimore that are doing work in our community to advance social justice and inclusion and equity right here in our community. And so, we're proud of the work that we're doing. There's always more work to do, and we feel great about the foundation that we've built to continue to do that work.
Hey, thank you. Thank you so very much, Trisha. Keena, one of the things I said earlier was that I was a gay person in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and I was very much interested in playing football, but I couldn't figure out how to be athletic, Black, and gay. Somehow you figured that out. So Keena, tell us a little bit about the award that you won and a little bit about your story.
Yes, absolutely. I had very similar struggles to you, obviously, but thankfully, I think that having institutional support, not only from my school, which is Hamilton College, but also the NCAA, really allowed me to feel a lot more comfortable, sharing my truth and taking that leap of faith. So it was at the end of my freshman year of college and into the beginning of my sophomore year that I came out. And as I kind of continued to be open about my identity and succeeding on the basketball floor, the NCAA actually created an award, which is the LGBTQ Athlete of the Year. And my coach nominated me last year, and I was selected, and gratefully, the reception of that award has kind of continued to give me the confidence to be comfortable and open about the intersection of all my identities. While there continues to be a growing acceptance, obviously, towards the queer community, coming out can still be a really challenging and difficult and emotional process. And that's, especially for BIPOC folk. And I think having that overt support through programs like the NCAA's One Team, or obviously the award they created, are two huge steps forward for the LGBTQ community and the intersection with athletics. So I really hope there can kind of continue to be an investment by the NCAA, and that Division I and Division II can kind of follow in these steps, and that, if someone like you in the future wants to play football, that they won't have to have any hesitations, and that, they feel like they'll be just like everyone else on the team.
Well, Keena, I had to give up on my dream, but you are definitely one to carry that dream forward, and I really appreciate that. The next person that I want to talk to is Jackie MacWilliams. Jackie, you are a trailblazer in herself as being a Black woman commissioner. Tell me a little bit about the awards that your institutions have received, but also talk a little bit about your own story.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to share. The CIAA is such a unique place to be. I always say the work that we do is inclusive and diverse every single day in the HBCU space. To be a part of a class of the NCAA who selects individuals or organizations and recognizes the support that we do in advancing diversity, equity, and inclusion within intercollegiate athletics is humbling. And for me, it's really about what we should be doing every single day. And so when you get the acknowledgement, even from Division II, for Award of Excellence for some of the work that we've done, it makes me proud that our membership, all 12 of our institutions and the leadership of our board, are committed to make sure that we create these spaces to tell our stories. CIAA is really about leadership, tradition, and community. And so everything that we do in that space is to ensure that we are being inclusive, that we're thinking about every single individual that has impact in our conference, to include alumni, fans, sponsors. So the work is every day. And so, the fact that we can put together a Mac Attack show, or we have our D&I programming that really allows our students to have a voice. And that's what this conference is about, right? It's about vision for change and allowing and empowering people to have voices. And I think that's part of being able to share our stories with our voices and using the D&I space, and to share that with the world. And so to be recognized for what we have done in the CIAA from the community standpoint, going into communities where there's a need and addressing that need, and for our team and even our membership to be involved on committees to have a voice. Committee on Women's Athletics and part of MOIC, we're making sure that we're recommending individuals to serve on those committees. I've chaired Women of the Year, and then to see a staff member to chair and be a part and chair Committee on Women's Athletics, Suzette, there's something about empowering the people around you to be a part of this great work. And it's just not about me. It's really about the people that we get to work with and the impact that we get to make in not just in our spaces, but in the communities that we serve every day. So it's intentional. And so to be able to submit and to share the stories with the NCAA and our NCAA family, we're not just keeping it right here at home. We're allowing others to get the ideas and to share the ideas of what we all get to do to make the world better. No matter if it's LGBTQ, no matter if it's race. Interestingly, this year, just talking about the race, we talk about it in the CIAA all the time. That's the majority of what we are when we're talking about race and color. But the LGBTQ space is one that we really have focused on, particularly being in the state of North Carolina, where you have the House Bill 2 that corrupted and disrupted everything that we do in college athletics. But even then, we sought partnerships to make sure that we can extend the opportunity and stay here, but make change. So I think everything in this space where we see as challenges, my board has taught me as a leader that we need to see them as opportunities. And I think that's why we do the work that we do and the things that show up and rise up, because we don't see them just as challenges. We see them, they're opportunities to make change in our community.
Well, we would love for Charlotte, being the Queen City, to continue to be a pioneer in all that they do around GLBT, as well as support for students of color. Yeah. You talked about a little bit about what you're doing currently, but this being a first is something that you accomplish. How do you feel about that? Now, what I heard is that there's only 2 other Black commissioners. I know Danielle Harris is my commissioner. She was recently appointed in WIAC, Wisconsin Intercollegiate Athletic Conference. So tell us about being a pioneer.
You know, it's interesting. When I took this job, I mean, I didn't see as being a first. I always tell people I saw it as an opportunity to do the work that I love to do in the space of leadership and operations and organizational structure. And Chancellor, you know, being a leader, getting at this position is very different than being, you know, the tactical person. And so really learning the tough skin of leading as the first. And at first I felt like an imposter. You know, did I really belong here? Should I belong here? You know, there were people who made comments, you know, whether it's social media, that they need a man in this position, that a woman shouldn't be in this position. So, you know, all the isms, they exist from being a young professional and working with more seasoned professionals. This is a male-dominated conference. It was founded by men, ran by men. Women had their position and places in it. But I will say that the CIAA groomed a lot of amazing women in this conference. And so to be able to take this role and position and then mentor Danielle and to mentor a Portia Ho, who are the other 2 Black female commissioners, and not be the only one on this side of the world anymore, is it's a blessing. And I think, you know, I see myself having a role and responsibility of bringing others along and making sure that I help them with the tools and give them, you know, the ideas and give them the comfort that they're not an imposter, that you really deserve to be in this role. No matter if I was Black, white, a female, gay, doesn't matter. I'm prepared for the position. And I think that's where you get caught up in these roles, where you don't feel like, or people don't accept or receive you in the way that you want to be received. But I think if you receive yourself and have that confidence in yourself, they'll have to receive you. They don't have any choice right now but to accept Jackie MacWilliams as the CIAA commissioner. I'm not a director. I'm the commissioner. And so it's just funny how people will put names on you, but you don't have to accept those names. So being the first, I hope I'm never the last. And I'm seeing it right now that I won't be, but really trying to create open up the doors for others to be in the position and role.
Well, shout outs to Portia and Danielle as well, and thank you for mentoring them. Kellen, you're at UW River Falls. Tell us a little bit about the award that you all won.
Yeah, so UW River Falls is primarily white Division III institution just outside of the Twin Cities. We're known for a lot of things, but ag is one of them as well. And so I think it came to a shock to all of us when we got the announcement that we received the award, but I was originally hired to do just compliance here, but then found my way into this work through a number of different things, including I want to give a shout out to the NCAA's Leadership Academy workshop. Really transformed who I was and how I saw my role here and what I could do on campus. So after completing that, started doing a lot of programming and discussions around racism, building a supportive LGBTQ plus community, drafted and it was adopted a policy of inclusion for transgender student athletes. We've had discussions on allyship and not just being an ally to our BIPOC community, and LGBTQ, but also having conversations with our men about how they can be allies to, women and lift them up as well. And just a number of different discussions, athlete activism.
The term BIPOC has been used several times. Keena, why don't you explain that term for us?
Absolutely. BIPOC is an acronym for Black, Indigenous, and People of Color, and it creates a specific distinction for Black and Indigenous people whose experiences are obviously a little bit different than other people in the communities of color. So it is a relatively new term, but it is often considered the most inclusive in terms of the terminology used to describe people of color. And
that's capital BIPOC. Is that right? BIPOC.
Yep, absolutely.
All right. Trisha, you are also the SWA. Can you explain what the SWA role is and how do you use that role to levy diversity, equity, and inclusion?
Absolutely. So, this is the second institution I've served as SWA at, and I am super passionate about the role of the SWA on our campuses and the importance of the role on our campuses. And I find it a huge responsibility of me as an individual locally on my own campus, in my own department, to explain what the role of the SWA is, as well as having great opportunities like this on a more national stage to talk about the role of the SWA and the importance of that. The SWA is your senior woman administrator. It's supposed to designate the highest ranking female in your athletic department, kind of period. There's not additional set responsibilities that go with the SWA role, but it was created to ensure that there is a female voice in the decision-making process of our athletic departments. And, I've certainly been in athletic departments where I'm the only female in the room. I'm happy to not be the only female in the room anymore, but, there's certainly still departments out there where your SWA might be the only female in the decision-making process. And certainly schools treat that role differently depending on the school, but it's really important to me. And for me, it's an opportunity to mentor our staff and our coaches, to connect them with opportunities, whether that's through the NCAA programs, which there are tremendous leadership and programs that the NCAA does, whether it's connect them with people on our campuses and really mentor the folks in our department. And it's an opportunity to be a leader in diversity, equity, and inclusion space as well, not just for our female athletes, but, Kenna talked about intersectionality and really being thoughtful about that for our student athletes and for our staff, to be comprehensive in our approach to DEI. And that's why we created our program review guide that helps us really evaluate. We were able to use NCAA resources that are available on the website. And I want to give a shout out to Amy Wilson, because she answers all of my crazy emails of, hey, can you point me in the direction of this? Who's doing this well? We don't have to recreate the wheel, which is a wonderful aspect of the NCAA programs and information and materials that they created. And even with that, there's a whole website on what is the SWA. And Amy was nice enough to let me kind of borrow from that and create. And we were able to create, I was able to work with one of our marketing interns, Emily Costello, during COVID, to create our own PDF at Towson of what does the SWA mean at Towson, to be able to share on our website, share within our department, within our campus, of kind of what my role is, and help people understand the SWA role as well, which led to me appearing on our podcast with one of our students to talk more about the SWA role with our Towson Sports Network students. And so, I think it's just a great opportunity, and the NCAA provides tremendous resources, and it's also an opportunity to connect with campus, whether it's your Office of Inclusion on campus, through the Title IX space, or just in general with diversity, equity, and inclusion issues, to really be an advocate. And I think this is where athletics and those of us that work in athletics can be real leaders for our campuses as well, because we're doing great work and we have great resources through the NCAA and forums like this to help lead our campus as well, and make sure that we're being inclusive of our campus processes as well.
All right. Well, thank you so very much, Trisha. I'm glad that you told us what SWA stood for, because back in the day, SWA stood for Sisters with Attitude. Those of you, it's a rhythm and blues singing group. But I guess the SWAs are still Sisters with Attitudes. Okay. Kellen, let's go back to you so you could finish your thoughts about why UW River Falls is such an excellent place for DEI.
Yeah, so I'm not sure exactly where I cut off, but we do a number of different things related to having lots of discussions regarding racism, allyship, so building a supportive community. I teach a class on sports leadership and development and dedicate 2 weeks to diversity, inclusion, and implicit bias in sports today, and then also athlete activism so that we can empower our own student athletes to use their platform and voice. But we also have non-student athletes in the class who get a chance to learn a little bit as well. And everything is just under the lens of sports. Really, the whole, I guess, culmination of this was attending the NCAA Leadership Academy workshop and going through that process with Maya Ozeri, Marcus Sedbury, and Jeffrey O'Brien. They were really instrumental and sort of a catalyst for me to figure out how to incorporate DEI into almost everything that we do. And I think it was just really impactful. As far as how we were able to do it, it really was a whole lot of partnerships, and that's what the Leadership Academy workshop taught me to do. We are on institutions of higher learning campuses, and there are a ton of resources just with the experts that we have here in a number of different areas. I have a women's and gender studies department that's been really helpful. I have a Center for Diversity, Inclusion, and Belonging that we have partnered on almost everything with, and have utilized a lot of the NCAA grants that are out there as well. So we've received the Women's and Ethnic Minority Grant, the Strategic Matching Alliance grants, and the Coaching Enhancement Grant, all since 2017. So all of those have really played a role in how we have been able to move the needle here on our campus.
All right. Thanks a lot, Kellen. I appreciate that. Keena, after this past summer, a lot of our students, as well as our student athletes, came back into the academy being very woke around social and racial and justice issues. Here on our campus, we turned the woke word into an acronym focusing on working on keeping engaged. With that being said, Keena, tell us a little bit about being a student athlete, being a student leader, and being sort of woke in this racial and social around racial and social consciousness, and any advice that you have to other student athlete leaders.
Yeah, in the past year, it's been heartwarming to see so many athletes use these platforms that they've worked so hard to acquire and create to highlight a lot of the injustices and inequitable systems that really continue to plague this country. So I first would like to thank any student athletes or anyone who is taking on that additional burden and highlighting social justice, as it obviously can be pretty taxing and exhausting at times. Personally, at this moment, I do not have any social media, but in the past few years when I did utilize it, I saw it as a tool or a vehicle to really to fight for anything I stood for. And I was cognizant of the fact that because I was an athlete and because people looked at me as this basketball player, that I could connect with more people and kind of spread a message further than I likely would have been able to without that athletic prowess. In terms of advice, I would say to student athletes, but then in general, for people to not take their foot off the gas pedal. There has been a fatigue of sorts, it seems, in the past few months, which is somewhat understandable. George Floyd was murdered over a year ago, but sadly, a lot of the problems that existed previous to his death, and many of which contributed to his death, are continuing to harm Black and brown folks today. So there's so much work left to do, and we should celebrate the steps we've made, but we are nowhere near getting towards any form of equity or equality. I also think it's really important for athletes to kind of have a collaborative mindset, and whether that be working with to create coalitions within their own athletic conference or even on the national scale, there is a power in numbers, especially when students come together around a singular goal. And then lastly, I would say it's really important to have tangible or actionable plans. There's so much energy and positivity, but also anger, and all those emotions should be culminated and channeled into something specific. So for students who are out of school and they want something changed, it's an important time to talk to a coach or an athletic director and talk with your peers and find out exactly what you want changed, and not to just allow those emotions to dissipate without any action being made.
Well, thank you so very much, Keena, for your personal advocacy. We always say that we want our young people to start with a sense of agency, focusing on their own beliefs, their attitudes, their disposition, move that agency into advocacy, and begin to pushing your thoughts towards other people, to move that advocacy into action, so that you can have something demonstrable. Use your agitation for good. So that's the action. And then to make sure that you hold the institution accountable, so that it's not just the information that is coming forth from one student strand, but it becomes institutionalized. So keep that in your headspace as you move from agency to advocacy to action to accountability. I'm going to go back to Commissioner MacWilliams. This whole thing about compassion fatigue in these difficult times. How do you, as a Black woman, as a commissioner, how do you navigate and maintain your ability to lead when you are filled with compassion fatigue?
I appreciate Keena's his remarks, because we're in a business for them. And so sometimes the fatigue seems like it doesn't go away because you want it to be right for them. As leaders, we have the responsibility and the opportunity to make the changes, to have the conversation and be courageous. But our younger people are being probably more courageous than most of us are, and they want to see it happen. So I think the fatigue is, getting other people to come along. And I love your acronym, because I was thinking about, as leaders, we're in positions to make decisions, to make changes, and people follow leaders. We don't have enough leaders who want to take the risk, because I don't see it as risk. I see it as opportunity to make our student athletes and our coaches be their best selves every day when you show up to work. And so if you're creating a culture that doesn't allow for that, that could be tiring, to have to go to work and people don't value you, or they don't let you have the best ideas that you have for the day, or you're tipping around wondering what they think after the election or after the calling of the decision after a George Floyd. That's tiring. The mental aspect is much more tiring than the physical, right? Our students are out marching, and all that, that's tiring. So for me, I pray, there's no doubt, but I think about what it is to lead with my heart. Am I honest and open with integrity every single day as a leader? Am I showing empathy and compassion to what our students are saying, or administrators are saying? Am I acknowledging that there really is something wrong, or am I walking by it like nothing's happening? I'm sitting at the table listening to conversations but not making the corrections, or at least challenging the conversation. Am I respecting and valuing other people's opinions and thoughts? If you think about all of what I just said, and just even the thankfulness and gratitude based on where you've been brought up, based on who you are as an individual, you will wear yourself out trying to keep up with your heart, trying to be kind and but the reality is we need more kind people. We need our hearts to lead us to make change, because diversity and inclusion work is hard work. You can't change people's attitudes about their beliefs and their thoughts, but you can lead as an example. I keep telling myself the way I'm going to get through this is do my best every single day as an individual, and not expect people are going to be the same as I am. But if I lead by example, if I lead as a better person, if I lead with my heart in the way that I just described, then the fatigue won't bother me as much. As I talked about, I'm not carrying everybody else's baggage anymore. I'm going to leave everybody on the carousel. I'm going to pick up my bag of my heart lessons, and I'm going to do the best I can, because fatigue will wear you out. Social media, as students, it wears me out as well. So I limit, those things that are going to put in my head things that I can't control. But the things I can control as a leader is have those courageous conversations and make the change that I can, and be in these types of conversations to influence others to think differently.
Hey, thank you, Commissioner. We really appreciate that. Kellen, I want to come back to you. You have been able to do amazing things at UW River Falls with the limited resources. You talked about the grants and whatnot that you got. What are other motivations that allow you to do this work? Also, you're working at a predominantly white institution. You're a white person. You're a male person. Don't know what your affectional orientation is, but you are knee deep in DEI work. Can you tell me what propels you to do DEI work when you're not typically a person of color or a GLBT person or a female? What compels your university to do DEI work?
Sure. Well, as far as the university goes, I think it was easy because we actually had, as part of our athletics department strategic plan, one whole section was just related to this. If you don't actually have it built into your strategic plan with actionable bullet points that you can look at and say, okay, there's this task. How are we going to do that? We want to do this. Well, how are we going to do that? I think it's just really hard. You actually need to put it down on paper. So we had a roadmap. And was able to utilize a lot of different resources through the NCAA, but then also just campus partnerships. We didn't have much money. We still don't have much money, and I don't think our situation is we're not unique out there. So, but that is not not having money is not an excuse to do the right thing. Like that is just the lamest thing I could think of. So, when we started to come up with ideas or we saw something on our strategic plan, I keep looking up here because it actually is up here. I keep it taped up to my desk. We had discussions of, well, who's on campus? Who has an interest in this? Or I even looked at my peer network of who could I talk to about this that maybe might be able to help and give me some ideas. So that was really the I guess the impetus and how we move forward. As far as myself, I have a tremendous amount of privilege, right? Like I'm a heterosexual, cisgender, white male administrator, but it is on me to use my privilege and my platform to help others. I had some really heartbreaking conversations with my student athletes, and just some of the experiences. It wasn't even experiences that they had on my campus. It was something that maybe had happened to them before they got here. And I think it was through those conversations that really informed me and this work of what we actually needed to address. And it never ends. It will never end. And so because everybody continues to come in with different experiences. And so continuing to learn who my student athletes are, and I have great conversations with them on a number of different fronts. I think that's really what drives me. Our cups get low sometimes, but having those conversations with those student athletes is what sort of refills the cup. I think that is sort of what is the driving factor now. As far as the award goes that we received in 2019, we don't necessarily do these things for awards. I am definitely not someone who seeks the spotlight. And so I think applying for the award was actually more of a recognition for all of the partnerships that we had gone through. And it was more for them to give them credit and say, we did this with them. This wasn't about us. Yes, athletics, we want to be leaders on our campus, but we also want to recognize everybody else that actually helped us get there. And so that was really, really important for us, because I am certainly not an expert in this area by any stretch. I have to call lots of people. I make mistakes still. But when we do have the platforms, we should use them for good, and to try and advance as many other people beyond ourselves as we possibly can. Most recently, I was elected chair of Academic Staff Council, so shared governance on my own campus. And even in that platform, people knew what I had done and what athletics had done. And so sometimes they look at that and they're like, well, can you help us campus wide? We have this issue. Can you now help us with this because you did things over in athletics? So probably the most recent example is we had our UW system president, who was a previous governor, on our campus. He just wanted to learn about our campus. But during a conversation, I directly asked him, we have a transphobic Protecting Women in Sports Act that is going through the Wisconsin legislature right now. I just point blank asked him in front of all of the people in the room if he would reach out to his colleagues in the state legislature to oppose that. My reasonings were very passionate, but I also had a fantastic athletic director and some other folks who were able to find where it conflicted with current policies. And so I was able to, learn about those, but specifically asked him to do that. And when you're in those positions, you have to do those things, because if I don't say it, or if somebody doesn't say it, who's going to? So I think, I guess that was a really long-winded answer to your question, but I don't know. There's just there's so many different things that sort of drive me and then drive this campus and the work that we do here in athletics.
Well, Kellen, I'm going to sum up your commentary with saying that ally is a verb, which is on my T-shirt. So that means that as an ally, you need to be active. And so thank you for all the work that you do. Trisha, tell us a little bit more about the Townsend Award. I was one of the persons who read your application and was very pleased that you were the 2021 recipient. Tell us a little bit more as we conclude our panel version of our presentation and move into any questions the audience might have.
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, it was important to apply for the award. I think for me personally, I was just so inspired by our student athletes, particularly in the last year, seeing them be more active in this space and seeing them kind of find their own voice. And so for me, seeking this recognition for our department was more about encouraging our student athletes to continue to be activists in their own right and to advocate within our community and on our campus, inspire our coaches to get more involved. We had a big TU Athletes Vote effort this year in collaboration with our campus TU Votes program, where, our student athletes were active in getting other students on our campus registered to vote, their teammates. We were a voting location right here in the athletics precinct of our campus, and our student athletes were out every day in the parking lots giving people directions on where to park and where to go to get in line to vote during both early voting and on election day. And just seeing their passion, that's what inspires me. We're in this business because we're educators and we want to give students opportunities. And I think the work in this space only expands those opportunities for our student athletes. And, again, just seeing their passion, as Kellen said, it refills your cup and just drives you to do this work even more and to push further. Okay,
thank you. But here's one question. What sparked everyone to be a part of DEI? And Keena, what is your spark? What motivates you to speak out about DEI issues?
Absolutely. I think it really is just a consciousness that there are people who are being oppressed and that there are systems of inequity that continue to exist. And as I've gotten older and realized and seen and experienced some of these things, especially with the identity markers that I carry, it is difficult to kind of ignore them or live my life aware that there are so many problems that all of us in some capacities are contributing to or are being privileged from without acknowledging them. So for me, it's about making the next person's journey easier than my own. And that could be someone who has the same identity markers as me, or a woman, or a trans person, or an immigrant. And I want more equality, more equity, not only in the U.S. but globally.
All right, thank you. What are your thoughts, Commissioner, around what propels you to do this work?
I really would like, and I think I said this to the group, the whole D&I space. And just naming it. I just want us to stop naming it and just do it. It's just, why does it have to be an additional program, an additional initiative? Why can't we just do work because it matters to the people that we serve and it matters to the people that we work with? And so in the CIAA, we have a Nevin Capel that many of you all know. She's one of our consultants that works with our D&I committee. But we always talk about, what is it, the core that we want to do that really makes impact for our student athletes in the work? What do we want our sponsors to see? What do we want the communities that we serve to see? The young people that we're trying to recruit to our institutions, that they can come to any of our schools and feel like they're a part of an environment and a culture where they can thrive and play the game that they love, regardless if they're gay, black, white, yellow, doesn't matter. Like, humanize. That's what we talk about. I want us to humanize people because we all deserve that, right? Culture, systemic issues have created a space where we have to label everything. Why can't, Keena, you just be who you are? Because that's who you are, right? And we don't have to worry about anything other than allow you to play the game, love who you want to love, and be the person that you want and respect and value you. And I think that's the conversation, no matter if it's women leaders I'm on, gender equity committee, wherever it is. What I'm saying here is no different. That's what's important to me, is that being in this work is to be as natural and be who we are as human beings and give people the spaces and the voices to do the same, including our student athlete and our advisory committee. That's a part of that conversation.
Thank you. All right. What about you, Trisha? What compels you to do this work?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I talked about this a little bit earlier, but overall, it's the right thing to do. We've spent, as a country, we've spent hundreds of years building systems and prejudices up, and it's going to take all of us to peel it back. And, it's important for all of us to get involved in this work. And as Jackie says, it's about allowing people to live their full lives as their full selves. And everyone deserves that, and it's about humanizing people and, loving people. And again, it's just the right thing to do.
All right. My football coach, Kevin Bullis, says it's time to do the right thing because it's the right thing to do, and this is the right time. Thank you. Kellen, what propels you to do this work? Propels or compels?
I think echoing everybody else's comments, I totally agree with all that. But I think it's really just the student athletes. I really want them to come here. I want them to feel comfortable in who they are, so that they can be their true, authentic selves every time they show up in any environment, whether in the classroom, whether hanging out with their friends, whether they're with their teammates, whatever it might be. I just want them to be really comfortable and welcome any space here on campus. I want the student athletes to also build bridges with each other. They don't necessarily have to agree on everything, but they should at least, get to know each other and find that common ground. When they do have disagreements, we need to teach them how to do that, because I don't think they always learn depending on where they come from. Just be allies to each other. We always talk about our Falcon family, and so that's really, really important that we help foster that family feeling. We talk about our values, and we talk about our culture, and we talk about we have a mentoring program with our first year student athletes, and we talk about our commitment to diversity, equity, inclusion, and it's like plastered right up there on the board. I mean, it's everywhere. So this is not something new. They don't just hear it every now and then. And so I think that's just really important that we just try to keep reminding everyone that we are here for them throughout their entire time and even beyond, because we are, helping educate the next leaders. And we need to give them the tools that they need to go out into the world to help make that positive change that we all hope for.
No, thank you, Kellen. Trish, there was a follow-up question. Says, could you talk a little bit more about your program review process and why that was important to the award?
Yeah, so probably about 5 years ago, I created a document that we call our program review guide. It's based in gender equity and diversity and inclusion. And it's set up where it's a 3-year review process. And there are certain items, kind of the demographics, the data that we maybe report every year, whether it's through the EADA or through the demographics report we might submit to the NCAA, that we look at annually. And then, specifically on the gender equity side, we split up the treatment issue part of Title IX into a 3-year cycle, so that we include our intercollegiate athletics committee, which is faculty. So we don't want to kind of overwhelm them with all of the treatment issues every year, to try to get their buy-in and participation in this. And so we split the treatment issues into a 3-year cycle, as well as some of the segments of DEI into that 3-year cycle, so that we can ask the questions and be thoughtful and intentional about where we are as a program, and also be intentional about identifying where are the things and what are the things we need to do to improve and get better, and be intentional in that planning process. So it's something that, we keep internally. We're in the process of reviewing that now, as we've got some new folks across campus in our inclusion and institutional equity office, as well as in our legal and risk management areas, that, we're in the process of editing that and updating it now. You see some checklists on for treatment issues that still ask about laundry money, and those types of things that are a little out of date. So, we try to keep that as contemporary as we can with what are the equity concerns that our student athletes are really, really dealing with, and what are the issues that we really need to address as a department. It's not something I have posted currently online, but, certainly if anybody wants to reach out to me, I'm happy to share that.
All right. Trisha, thank you. Some of the things that we struggle as an institution is always talking about, this is a procedure, this is a practice, this is a process, this is a protocol. But until we turn this into policy, then it will never get institutionalized. So thank you for the work that you're doing, because some of this work needs to be institutionalized. And we need to make sure that our athletic programs, we often say that the athletic programs are the front door to the institution. But I like to think that the athletic programs are not only the front door, but they're every room in the house, and they're also the back door. And so by making sure that diversity, equity, and inclusion is a part of the athletic department, meaning that it's a part of the institution as well. So let's work collectively to institutionalize DEI, not only within athletics, but throughout our institutions. And I applaud the fact that NCAA is leading the way on that. They are pioneers around this process. They recognized early on that the confluence between athletics and DEI, and although Commissioner MacWilliams says it's time for us to move beyond, there's still a need for tighter integration. There are lots of programs that are out there that are like the ones that have been recognized today. We encourage our NCAA partners to look at some of the diversity, equity, and inclusion awards, and make sure that you nominate your programs. Because we know that there's a lot of richness that's already out there. We want to make sure that you stay vigilant and participatory on your campus, but you amplify at our national conferences in various ways the work that you all are doing. This is a challenging time for all of us. I want to thank our panelists for doing the rich work that they're doing at their individual institutions, in their personal lives, Keena, and also at the commissioner level, Commissioner MacWilliams. But all of you are doing legitimate and worthwhile work. As we conclude today, I want to remind us about having a courageous conversation. And that's what we had today, a very courageous conversation. So, Lynn Singleton, in his book, Courageous Conversation, says the first thing you need to do is to speak your truth. And each one of you all spoke your truth as you talked about your programs, as you talked about your history and your own personal navigation. When you are speaking your truth, and if you're speaking your truth in your context, and maybe your truth is maybe against others, then you will experience discomfort. And so I know that several of you have experienced discomfort along the way, but you continue to speak your truth. And for that, we appreciate you. And then as you speak your truth, you're going to realize that you can't get to closure. So one of the tenets of courageous conversation is expect and accept non-closure. Because sometimes, like within our hour, we could go on and on about the need for DEI, but we have to accept and expect non-closure. We didn't answer all the questions, and I know there's more questions out there. But the last part of a courageous conversation is to stay engaged. As you speak your truth, as you experience the discomfort, as you expect and accept non-closure, please stay engaged. And that's not only for our panelists, but also our audience. On behalf of MOIC and the NCAA, I want to thank you all for being panelists today, and I want to thank the membership for tuning in. If there's, I guess I want to end with just a complete thank you, and we honor the work that you do.